Hello, Happy New Year, everyone from Massachusetts, USA. My name is Christin Ritz, and I'm going to be talking about 9-Star Key today and a little bit about myself. I discovered 9-Star Key through a guest speaker who came to a macrobiotic cooking class I used to attend weekly in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And I found it quite interesting, and I later got this book by Michio Kushi and Ed Esco that came out in the early 90s. And over the years, I would read it and kind of forget, some of the numbers, and it can get a little confusing with all the charts and numbers. And then time would go by and I just kept going back to it over and over again. And I studied with different teachers, and I was fortunate to study with Ed Esco in the last few years, and he asked me to help him with the reissue, the second edition of that book I just held up, which he put out in 2020. So I helped him with the copy editing on this one, and that was a real honor for me. And here I am now, so in 2023. So my talk today will be about the year we're going into, which will be a tree 4 year. And I'm going to be focused on where we are globally in the flow of energy. I'm not going to focus so much about our individual destinies and paths through the key flow, but this will be more about the energy we experience as a collective on Earth. So I think it's a lot of fun to do your own personal destiny and chart, and maybe we can talk about that at a future time. But I guess if anyone has questions as I'm going on, you could type it in the chat and we can get to those afterwards. And I will now attempt to share my screen. Let me share. All right. Great. And can everyone see that okay, Gnat? Yes. Okay, great. So 9-Star Key, it's based on the 5 elements, or what we call in macrobiotics, the 5 transformations. This is the same philosophy as the macrobiotic diet, feng shui, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and other traditions like that. So whether or not we realize it, everyone understands this cycle because it's really the basis of all of our earthly experiences. So each of the 5 elements is a symbol that we use to describe a certain type of energy. And I think one of the easiest ways for everyone to understand is by using a metaphor for the seasons. So here I have outlined the same chart. And if we begin with spring, which is tree energy, or sometimes called wood energy, springtime energy is the beginning of growth. So it's when everything in nature is waking up. Everything's been dormant all winter. Animals come out of hibernation. Sprouts start to come out of seeds. It's a time for new beginnings. And then if you move up the circle to fire energy, that is the energy of summer. So now the springtime growth is now expanded to its biggest. The plants and the gardens are all fully blooming. The days are very long. We're getting a lot of light. And the weather has also increased temperature, so it's getting hotter out. And then after the peak of summer, things start to fall and we go into late summer, which would be late August and early September time. And this is when the energy starts falling. Things start slowing down, plants start fading, they're past their prime. Things are just kind of coming down from that maximum level of expansion. And I think that time of year, like those lazy days of summer, is when everyone sort of starts to slow down. And then moving down to the bottom of the circle, we go into autumn, which is metal energy. And at this point, the days are now noticeably shorter. We're getting less light every day. The weather is cooling down. We're harvesting crops. We start to spend more time indoors. People go back to school. It's a different mood than we were in spring or summertime. And then completing the circle with the element of water, that is the correlation to winter time. So now the days are at their shortest. It's the darkest time of the year. The weather has gotten cold. Everything's kind of quieter. We tend to spend even more time inside. It gets more difficult to get around in the weather. Nature sort of goes to sleep. All the plants have gone dormant at this point or dropped their seeds to just slumber until spring comes again. So these are the 5 transformations or 5 elements over the course of a whole year. But every single day, we repeat this same cycle just on a smaller scale. So here we see this same pattern happening in a single day. So morning time is spring or tree. So that's when we rise, we wake up, we start. Summertime or for fire or noon time it's the brightest part of the day, just like summer is for the year, and we tend to be the most active. Then moving as the sun starts to move down in the sky, it's afternoon, which is similar in energy to late summer or soil, often called earth energy also, but I'll use soil. And this is when afternoon is when people kind of start to run out of energy. People want a little pick-me-up. You can kind of feel the energy declining. We're a little bit less active. And then moving into the evening time or metal, that's the autumn of the day. We tend to go home. If we've been at work or wherever, we settle down. We congregate together, whether that's having dinner with your family at home or if you're just seeing people in the evening. Everything is sort of coming down, the atmospheric energy. And then, of course, nighttime, that is the darkest part of our daily cycle, just like winter. And it is the time that we go dormant and we will sleep and rest and go through a mini winter until we wake up again in the morning. So large and small versions of this cycle are all going on simultaneously all the time. And that's what is making up all the activity in our world. So this could be the lunar cycles with the new moon through the full moon and all the phases in between, the aging process we go through from, birth to middle age to old age to death over the course of our lives, plant growth, menstrual cycles, it's on and on, all different sorts of cycles happening. So our world is just made of all layer upon layer of cycles, all at different stages at the same time. So we can break down this cycle of 5 things even more precisely and break them into 9. And each element has numbers associated with them, the numbers 1 through 9. And you can see that water and fire only have 1 number each. And then tree and metal each have 2 numbers, and soil has 3 numbers. So this is just a way of breaking up the 5 energies I described even more into more precise descriptions. But this means that there's only 1 sort of water energy and 1 sort of fire energy. And then there are 2 types of tree energy, 2 types of metal energy, and 3 sorts of soil energy. So each year that comes is charged with the energy of 1 of these numbers and its corresponding element. And this pattern of 9 energies keeps repeating in 9-year cycles. So we all are experiencing the energy of the year collectively. And we can see this traced if we look back at world events that have happened in different years and what energy it was that year. So this next page, this shows the 9-year cycle that we're in now. and you can see the numbers starting on the left, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the numbers are counting down as time goes on and the years go on. So I think an easy way that we can all make this more tangible and real to daily life is by looking at 2020. So that's a memorable year for everyone in the world, I think. And Ed Esco often talked about the metal energy of 2020 and 2021 and how that related to the COVID pandemic and all the things that we went through. I'm sure many of you have listened to him speak about that at the time. And so 7 metal and 6 metal for 2020 and 2021, that metal phase we were in, metal relates to management, organization, rules and regulations, as well as finances and the economy. So that was the year that the coronavirus emerged. It's also the year we had, a lot of lockdowns, control, regulations. 2021, we moved into a different phase of metal energy, which is when we had the vaccine come out, which also relates to metal energy. And then there were more mandates associated with that. So it was a very metal time, and it really showed very easily in what everybody was going through. And then moving into 2022, we went into a 5 soil year, which is a little looser and lighter than metal energy. So although COVID continued, it seemed to be a lesser degree than the metal years. And, mandates and lockdowns have loosened worldwide because of that. The thing about a 5 soil year is that I know Alex, Jack, and also Ed had warned that is often the year of world wars and a lot of conflict. And we did see a lot of conflict with Russia and Ukraine. So we're almost out of that 5 soil phase now. And the 4 tree year of 2023 is going to begin on February 4th. So although it's New Year's Day today, we are still in the 5 soil energy from 2022. And the 9-star key year runs from February 4th through February 3rd of the following year. So we'll be in 4 tree from February 4th until February 3rd of 2024. So now moving from soil to tree, this year we should really see things loosen up even more in regards to regulations. Things in general will sway more liberal in a tree year than they were in a metal and soil year. And there should be travel, particularly air travel, will be prevalent. And I have a lot more predictions about 4 tree year. I'm not sure if I'll have time to get to them all, but maybe if there's time at the end, I will. And now we can, just as I talked about breaking down the larger cycle of the year into just single days, we can also break down the tree 4 year of 2023 into months. So each month is also charged with a different number and energy and element. So over the course of 2023, which is still a 4 tree year overall, if we start in February, when the year starts on February 4th, we will be beginning with a 8 soil month. And then in March, we'll go into 7 metal, April 6 metal. In May, we'll be in 5 soil. In June and July, we will go through 4 tree and 3 tree energy. August will be 2 soil. September will be 1 water. And there's 12 months to a year, so it actually will continue around. So October will be the 9 fire. November will repeat an 8 soil month again. December will be a 7 metal month again. And January will be a 6 metal month again. And if that's confusing, just stick with me, and I think it will make more sense in a few minutes. If you follow that cycle, you can see that month by month, there will be a phase. For instance, in March and April, we'll go through a phase of metal energy and then soil, and then 2 months of tree energy and then soil. So soil acts like almost like a buffer month in between each element. The only two elements that don't get that soil in between is water and fire. And those two are opposites. So when those months occur, it's like a big change in the energy. And there'll be more about that afterwards. So on this next page, so this looks like Sudoku, but it's not. But these charts are the charts for each one of those months I showed you. And it's a lot more, it's not as complicated as it looks on the screen. So this can be confusing in a short talk, so I'm not going to dwell on these too much. But if you look on the left, the larger chart is our chart for the whole year, 2023, with 4 in the center of the chart, which is for tree energy. And then you can see month by month all the other charts. And it's very simple to understand this if you just simplify it into the 5 elements that we all know and the energies of them. So on this page, I have overlaid the charts with the names of the elements that are a little easier to comprehend than all the numbers floating around. So, like I said on the left, it's a tree 4 year with 4 in the center of that chart. So what does that mean? I'll stop screen sharing for a minute and well, maybe, oh, okay. So what does a 4 tree year mean? So 4 tree is specific, I said it was springtime, but 4 tree is specifically the later half of spring. So this is, it's not when the seeds are just, you know, starting to burst open with sprouts. This is more, things are really blooming, the flowers are opening up, the birds are singing. We're past the equinox at this point, so things are getting brighter and brighter. So as far as the energy of that goes to 9-star key, 4 tree is generally a very positive and optimistic time. So that's good news. 4 tree is associated with expression. That could be any kind of expression, artistic expression, expression of opinion. It has to do with networking, with connecting people, connecting all the small pieces. Think of it like a big extended tree with many branches, and all those branches connect to the tree trunk. That's what tree 4 energy is like. So it's great for networking, for outward growth, for movement, branching out into new things. So everyone will be experiencing 4 tree energy to a degree. The last times in recent history we had a 4 tree year were in 2014 and 2005. So if those years stand out to you personally as maybe significant things happened in your life, then there's going to be a similar scenario this year in terms of the energy that brought those things to happen. And I looked back at some of the top news headlines of those 2 years, and there were a few correlations that I'll share with you. So this could be telling of things that could potentially happen in this year. 2023 we'll be going into on February 4th. So both years had some fear surrounding possible pandemics. There was the Ebola outbreak in 2014. And then in 2005 was the H1N1 virus. In the US, where I am, foreign policy, both years, there was some opening with countries to our south. So in 2005, then President Bush signed the Central American Fair Trade Agreement. And that was supposed to bring, you know, fair wages and better conditions to our trading partners in those countries. Didn't really work out that way, but it's still relative to a 4 tree year with the connections being made. Then in 2014, that was when President Obama opened relations with Cuba, and that was after 54 years of separation. And in the news, they actually called that the Cuban thaw. And I thought thaw was very apropos for springtime and tree energy. Both years, there was a lot of terrorism in the news. So in 2014 was the rise of ISIS, and 2005 had many instances of terrorism, typical of the early 2000s, but that was including the London bombings. On a lighter note, related to tree 4 energy, 2005 is when YouTube launched. So that's very for tree in terms of self-expression, connecting people, networking. So I thought that was interesting. 2014, there were patterns in the news, in the US anyway, of violence against women, which I found interesting. So that was the year of the Bill Cosby rape allegations and trials. And our National Football League, there were many players that had domestic violence scandals that were in the news that year. I'm not totally sure why that is tree 4 energy, but it seemed relevant. And then there were also, here we had police killings of 2 separate instances of Black men, Michael Brown and Eric Garner, which led to huge protests. And protests are a form of expression, and that's not an isolated thing that happened just that year, but the fact that the protests emerged so much more prominently in 2014 versus all the other years that have gone by, I thought was relevant to the tree 4 expressive nature. I also looked at the Merriam-Webster dictionary. So every year they come up with a word of the year, and it has to do with the most internet searches and different data they collect. And both words for those years, I think, are good ones, positive ones. So in 2005, it was integrity. And in 2014, it was culture. So I'm not sure what was leading people at those times to look up those words specifically, but they're both things that we want. So I'm hoping we'll have a good word by the end of 2023 and better than 2022, because the word of the year for 2022 was gaslighting. So I hope we can do better.
I've forgotten what that means, gaslighting.
It's when someone manipulates someone else by convincing them that what they believe to be true is not reality. Okay. And people use that word a lot around here. So I'm going to go back to screen sharing and remind everyone of a quote from Mark Twain, which was, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." And that's really what we're looking at here with 9-star key, looking back in history. So if we look at the year 2023, month by month, we can know where the world is in the cycle of key or energy. And then we'll have an idea of what to expect those years, and hopefully act in ways that'll be beneficial to all of us in the world. So starting at the top left in February, when the year starts on February 4th, we will be in a soil month, and you can see 8 is in the center of that chart. So that would be 8 soil. So that's a time of idealistic views, change, revolution, attention to social causes, social justice. It can be a turning point type time. So this may bring a dramatic start to the year, not knowing what those changes might be. And then in March and April, we will go into a metal phase. So like I mentioned before, metal has to do with the economy, organization, management, rules and regulations. It also has to do with material, like material wealth, materialism. And in the past year, 2022, this phase happened in June and July of 2022. So here in the US, we saw some really notable regulations. So we have a very conservative US Supreme Court right now. And during that metal phase is when they overturned Roe versus Wade, which was what federally protected abortion in this country. And that's also the same time they stripped power from the Environmental Protection Agency. So that changed a lot of things in terms of environmental regulations. We also had a lot of financial changes that year worldwide. That was when cryptocurrency had their one of their first big crashes, if not the first big one. It was Bitcoin had one of its largest drops in value it ever had. In the US, the inflation was the highest it's been in 40 years. There are the worst markets around the world in the stock market in decades. And China had the slowest growth to its economy in over 2 years. So when we go through this phase in March and April coming up this year, the difference will be, we're in a tree 4 year this year, whereas last year we were in soil 5. So hopefully the tree energy will bring a positive spin to all these kinds of financial issues. Then on May 5th, we will start a new 9-star key month where we will be in soil 5 energy. So this can be a tense time, or it can be one that brings about unity. So this month, everyone will really be in their own personal nature. So your own qualities are going to be really strong. So the downside of that is that people can really get set in their ways and dig their heels in, and that's what can cause all the conflict during soil 5 times. So it's a time that we really want to try to be flexible and with each other and cooperative so that we don't end up having conflicts. So the last soil 5 month we went through was in August, and there were many polarizing events that happened during that period. And the polarization plays into the intensity and the possibilities for conflicts that we can see. So that was the month that Russia suspended gas to Europe. That's really digging your heels in, I think. And then in the US, there were a lot of polarizing headlines. So that was when the FBI searched Donald Trump's estate. There were record numbers of migrants arrested at the Mexican border. That was when Biden introduced his bill that would eliminate student debt. And these were all controversial topics in a country that's already very divided. But luckily we got through that 5 soil time without any major issues. Like we said, how soil 5 years and months can be times of intense war and problems. So then if we move along the calendar to June and July, we are in tree energy and we're in a tree year. So you can see the chart for June has 4 in the center. It's exactly the same chart as the chart for the year on the left. So this means we're in double tree 4 energy. So all the qualities of tree 4 are going to be particularly pronounced. And it can be also sort of an intense time for people because of that. So tree 4 is about expression and growth. It also has to do with trade, commerce, travel. It has the energy, like I said, of springtime, of growth and development and blooming. So the last 4 tree month we went through was in September of 2022. And looking at what was happening in the world, that was when protests began in Iran over the women's dress code. So looking at that, breaking the dress code itself is a form of expression, which goes with the tree 4 energy. And then the protest is another level of expression about, you know, what people want for cultural change. And that's also tree 4 energy. And then that was followed, of course, by violence against women, which I mentioned seemed to come up in 2014 in our tree year then. So I would expect that women personal expression, that may come up again in the June because it will be a double tree 4 time. I don't know if that's going to be in Iran or if it's going to be a similar issue elsewhere, but I'll be looking in the news during that time to see what happens during June in the double tree 4 time. And then moving into July, we're still in tree, but now 3 is in the center of the chart. So tree 3 has more to do with new beginnings. That's like early spring when things are just starting out, when sprouts are just popping out of the seeds and you see growth everywhere. So tree 3 is a great time to start new things. It's a big time for businesses. It also is related to technology and innovation. So looking back at our last time we were in 3 tree month, that was in October, and there were a lot of tech businesses in the news. So that was when Elon Musk officially bought Twitter. So that gave it a new beginning, and that began with huge layoffs at the company. And then there were also huge layoffs at other tech companies like Amazon and Meta. And then unrelated to tech, another notable new beginning was in the UK when Truss resigned and Sunak replaced her. So that was a big new beginning for that part of the world. If we look at August, now we're in the soil 2 month. So soil 2 has to do with the land, with farming, with agriculture, food production. It also has to do with motherhood, Mother Earth, with education. So these are all things that could come up in the news during August. And the last time we went through a 2 soil month, that was in both February and November of 2022. That was when in the United States, there was a recall on baby formula, and baby formula became extremely scarce. So that's related to both motherhood as well as food supply and nourishment. And this was a huge challenge for mothers and for many families trying to feed their babies. But on the positive side, it did bring attention to our industrial food system and the reliance we have on it. And it also gave people a chance to educate themselves about what proper nutrition is for infants and ways that they can do that themselves at home with different things than industrial products. February 2022 was also when Russia first invaded Ukraine, and that was about taking land. So land is the energy of soil too. Oil prices skyrocketed at that point, which also has to do with the earth and soil energy. And then more recently in November, land transportation has to do with soil too. And that was when US railroad workers made news by nearly going on strike, attempting to anyway. And land transportation like trains has to do with not only the soil to energy of land transportation, but also the food supply that would have been disrupted by that move if it had happened. In September, we began a phase of water energy. So I said water is like the winter time. It's quiet, low energy time. It also can represent the flow of energy after a lot of tension. So in that first image I showed you, water followed metal. So after the tightest tension of metal energy, things start to move and flow with water. So in March and December of last year, we went through that water time. And in the news, mostly in March, was just the tragic aftermath of Russia invading Ukraine. But then also we saw New Zealand's Prime Minister, who had been experiencing really intense protests about her COVID lockdowns, dropped many of the vaccine mandates. And that was a loosening up and flow of energy after the tension of the protest. So October, we will go into a fire month. So this is going to be a big change from the water energy because those are polar opposites. This is a very active time, and it's usually a positive time, but fire is very bright, and it's like bright light, and it can illuminate things. It can reveal secrets. Things become exposed during this time. So in April, when we went through a fire month last year, that was when Boris Johnson's secret of attending the illegal party during COVID lockdowns was revealed, and he had to apologize. That's the same month that satellite images exposed the huge amount of deforestation that had happened in the Brazilian Amazon rainforest. It had a record amount of deforestation over the course of 3 months, but it was revealed in a fire month. So the fact that information was revealed is fire energy itself, but what it was revealing, the deforestation that would lead to increased climate temperatures, that's also fire as well. Then in November, we will go into soil 8 energy. And then in December and January will be metal. So you can see the last 3 months of the year are exactly the same as the first 3 months of the year. So because there are 12 months in our calendar and only 9 types of energy, then that means every year 3 of those repeat. So in November, we can expect similar energy that we would in February. And in December and January, we can expect it to be very similar to March and April. So all this I've been talking about is the universal or global flow of Ki for the year. So this is the big cycle that we all go through together, and we're all affected by this energy. But depending on the year we were each born, we are all innately charged with the energy of the year that we came to Earth. So for instance, babies born after February 4th this year, born in this tree 4 year, will for the rest of their lives have tree 4 qualities to their personality. So for instance, they are they're usually very expressive. They can be trendsetters. They're usually good at networking and making connections. They excel at business. They're someone you want to run a company. So those are all qualities they'll take with them. And each of the 9 numbers has personality traits associated with it. So that's what's really fun about 9-star Ki and how we can use it to learn about ourselves and learn why certain people get along and others tend to clash. It's fun to look at relationships that way. And if you're interested in that, you can contact me and maybe we could do another talk or a class sometime in the future. So on this page, I'm having a hard time changing pages. Sorry about that. I just don't know why. Do you know, Gannat? Okay, so if I use number 1 as an example, for someone who was born in a 1 water year, just because it's the first number, this is the same chart for 2023 and all the months. And you can follow the number 1, which I've highlighted around the charts. So month by month, all the numbers circle around in a spiraling pattern, and they move through the different squares, which we'll call houses of energy. So every time you go through a different, your number goes through a different house, you pick up certain qualities that go with that number's element. So our personal journey through the Ki flow tends to affect our personal lives on an individual level much more intensely than the universal flow I've been talking about so far. So reading charts like this and seeing where someone's going in the Ki flow is how we come up with 9-star Ki forecasts, to see where you're personally going through the year. And that can tell you the best times of year to do certain things. If you have certain goals you want to achieve, you might want to do them at a high energy time versus a low energy time, things like that. So for example, if you look at the big chart on the left of the whole year, that is a tree 4 year because 4 is in the middle. but you can see 1 is up there on the right-hand corner. And 1 happens to be in the house of soil 2. So soil 2 is the time of year when winter is transitioning into spring. So it's like a very late winter, but not quite spring yet. So this is when things are really just like thawing out. Nothing is growing yet. It's just that time when you know winter is coming to a close. So Michio Kushi called this time stagnation, which doesn't sound that great. As a year to go through of stagnation. But what it means is that you don't want to push too hard for things. You just need to be patient and let things happen and let nature take its course and just be receptive like the earth itself. So for someone born in a 1 water year, that's the kind of year they can expect. But month by month, the energy is also changing. So if there's something they don't want to wait on, they could perhaps find the best month for them to go ahead and do that. So this illustration shows how the global or universal key energy interacts with our personal energy that we're going through. So the space in the middle of the circles overlapping, that's the combination of the two, of your individual path and the universal path. And that space in the middle is what creates our experience as an individual. So for instance, with the 1 water person I was talking about, they already have 1 water energy as part of their nature. That's who they are. And it happens that they're in a 2 soil year this year. So you have that. Plus, the world is going through a tree 4 year. So all these layers of cycles interact in that overlap space in the center of the image to describe what's going on with them. So even though we're all going through a tree for a year, we're not all having the same exact experience. There are differences. And to wrap up my talk today, I will leave you with a question to ponder that I've been pondering myself that we can all think about. So going back to this image we saw before, the 2023's universal numbers for the months, you can see the numbers are counting down 9 through 1 as the months go on. So as time goes on, we're going 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 over and over again. And then on this next page, if you followed the charts for that water person, if you follow them as the months go on for them, the numbers are counting down. I'm sorry, counting up. So they're going 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 1 through 9, 1 through 9 cycles over and over again. So why is it that the global or universal energy, the energy is flowing down 9 through 1, and our personal energy is flowing up 1 through 9? And I always wondered that. And I'm still not sure if I have the right answer, but it's something to contemplate. So I've tried to illustrate it here. So I started with the concept of the picture on the left. So the spiraling line represents time, and the numbers are the energy cycle. So if you follow the up arrow, that's us going upward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, over and over again, pushing up. And then if you follow the line going down, that's the universal energy counting down 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 over and over again. And somewhere on that line where we meet with time, that's the point of our reality now. And then I got to what I think is probably more accurate, the illustration on the right, which is 2 spiraling lines, sort of like a DNA helix. And there are numbers in the center of each one. So if you follow the one line that's going up, that's our personal journey counting up through the numbers. And the other line coming down is time, where the universal energy coming down on us, going down through the numbers. And that space in the middle is the combination of the two that represents our reality, which is the same as this space in the middle here. So
Bravo. That's brilliant. That's
thank
really
you.
good. I think we have to channel Ed and see if he agrees.
So yeah, thank you for having me, Gana. And I hope the 3-4 year will bring, happiness and blessings to everyone, and that it's a good year.
Since I made double 4, I'm really looking forward.
You're going to have a lot going on.
Yeah, some interesting times. So it means I'll be true to my nature. That how to understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot coming, a lot of opportunities, a lot of different things coming towards you because you're in the middle of the chart. So everyone's looking for your energy.
I love it. Good. Let me see if we've got any questions. Anybody? Use your chance.
I can see Michelle has her hand up.
Oh, good. So I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
I
your
see.
presentation. It was wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
I also have that book by Ed Esco and Michio Kushi. How did you, I'm sorry, did I miss it? How did you learn it? Did you learn it from studying with Ed Esco?
I started just studying independently, reading that Michio book over and over again, and then other books. And then I did take some online class, and I just kind of kept self-studying. And then I ended up meeting Ed in 2019 and doing the IMI courses with him. And he encouraged me to teach 9-star key to my classmates in my IMI class. And then after that, he asked me to help him with the book that he was reissuing.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, Ed had told me I was a 6 in 2019 and I'd have a wonderful year. So yeah, he other macrobiota counselors had told me about it, but he really got me in, my interest peaked. So yeah, interest, wonderful. And what would you recommend for people like me who'd like to study it? I have, but Ed's no longer with us, unfortunately.
There's not tons of 9-star key resources. I could maybe I could type into the chat a couple books I think are really good. I do teach some, occasionally I'll do an online class, like an introduction to it, and also a second version where you learn to read those charts and actually chart out your personal path. So maybe Ganat could share my info, and then
for sure.
I can update you if I do any of that.
Wonderful, great.
So if I'm a 4, does that mean I'm a 4 tree?
Yes. Yep. The only number 4 is 4 tree.
Okay.
So if you are 4 like Ganat, you will be in the spotlight this year.
Okay. Thanks.
The number in the center is the only number that touches all 8 other numbers. So that means everyone has a connection to you this year. Compared to other years, your number might be in the corner and you're only touching 3 others, and you're a little more separate from the rest.
So Karen says she's a 4 tree. So that's 3 of us. In India, they say 3 this way. 3 of us. At least.
Who else?
One time, Clara, do you remember we did some kind of activity and we organized ourselves according to 9-star key number?
You did. We were, I don't remember what we were organizing, but you found out everybody's 9-star key and what they were best at doing. That was wonderful. Yeah.
That's cool.
So
Very
Clara,
cool.
you're a 4 tree also?
One water.
Oh, one water.
So
okay.
I totally didn't understand when you highlighted the ones. I didn't understand what it meant.
Yeah, you can get lost, and in this length of a presentation, it's too much to get into. But the easy way to think of it is each chart, each section of the chart represents one of the 9 energies, and they just keep moving around month by month. So without going into too much detail, that's basically the gist of it, but you're going through all 9 energies over and over again.
Okay. That I got.
Yeah, the details
Well,
weren't important for this.
Well, Christin, I really hope to have you back. I feel like we've just kind of begun, and it's so nicely presented in such a wonderful study. So I really look forward to continuing.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like with 9-star key, if the more I study 9-star key, the more it enlightens my thinking about macrobiotic food and all the other macrobiotic concepts. And the more you look at macrobiotics, if you already know a little bit about 9-star key, it will make the 9-star key make more sense. So they just go hand in hand, and they keep enlightening one another.
Thank you so much.
I like the way you brought in all the events that happen throughout the world. That was interesting.
Yeah, it's easy to look back. It's harder
Yeah.
to look forward.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Christin. It's just really happy and excited and appreciative, and et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So for my predictions for 2023, starting on February 4th, of course, over the course of the year, there's going to be a lot of activity around farming and food production because of where the soil 2 was placed in the chart for the year. There's also going to be a lot of activity around technology and new innovations. So my hope, parlaying off what Alex was talking about before, my hope is that the focus on food is going to be more about regenerative farming and organic agriculture versus the biotech GMO food. However, likely both things will be happening at once, but hopefully, the prior with the organic and regenerative practices for the land and the more localized food supplies will be what I hope will be the main focus there. And the 8 soils also in a high point this year. So idealism, social change, justice, revolution, that's all going to be in a spotlight place. So related to food, I'm hoping that will have to do with the social justice aspect of food and diet and access to quality food for people all over. I'm hoping not so much for the artificial technology related to food and fake meats and things like that. Restaurants are also in a high place this year. So I think that's going to move more towards farm to table type trends that we've already been seeing. On a spiritual level, I think we're going to see a little bit of a rise in religions that honor goddess energy and Mother Earth and more pagan nature-loving traditions. And as far as policies go with governments, I think there's going to be less conservative policies this year related to commerce and trade and foreign policy and things opening up more and more connections made compared to what we've gone through 2020 through 2022. As far as health, things to look out for would be the liver and gallbladder, because those are the tree organs. So there may be health problems associated with like hepatitis or fatty liver, gallstones, or heavy metal accumulation in the liver. So if you have a sensitive liver or gallbladder, it's going to be a year for everybody to nourish and support those organs. As we move out of the 5 soil year, I think the risk of world war is decreasing. Hopefully, I'm knocking on my counter, and that will be out of 5 soil on February 3rd will be the last day of that. It's moving to a much less active position than it has been the past year. Based on where fire energy is in the chart this year, that has to do with fashion and art and entertainment. I think we're going to see 2 things come in that arena. I think one point of it is going to be very sexualized and hypersexualized, and the other half is going to be more spiritual in nature related to art and entertainment. So I'm not sure. We'll see what happens there. I think finances and the economies around the world are going to change. It's the financial arena is in the house of change, so something's big is gonna happen there. And then for US politics, Joe Biden, our president, is also a tree 4. So he will be in the center of the chart. And although the president of the United States is always in the spotlight, I think this year more than ever, he's going to have a lot of different things coming at him. There will be good things and bad things. So, but he is really in the hot seat this year, just like the other 4 trees we have in the group. And his vice president, Kamala Harris, is a 9 fire by nature, and she's positioned in the 1 water house. So that's her opposite nature, and that is the lowest energy position in the chart. So it's going to be maybe an uncomfortable year for her energetically, and should anything happen to Joe Biden and she needs to step in or take over to a large degree, I don't think it's a good year for that to happen. I don't think she's in a good place this year to have to do that. So hopefully she'll be able to skate through the 1 water that's her complete opposite nature without having any major changes or issues. And I think that's all my predictions for the year.
That's very impressive.
You foresee any health problems with the president? Yeah.
I mean, yes. I don't know that it relates to the liver and gallbladder per se, but I mean, I know he's a big ice cream eater, and you can see that in his, if you diagnose him by looking at him and how he moves and everything. So I'm not sure exactly what to expect on that front, but I don't think it's, all positive. I'm hoping he can hang on so Kamala doesn't have to take over this year.
Yeah. Stop
Okay
recording.
then. Okay then. So once again, thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thank you.